My first job out of college was working for the retailer Montgomery Ward. If you're not old enough to know what Montgomery Ward was, it was a retailer that rivaled Sears and J.C. Penney. My store manager was Des Weindorf, and he was hyper focused on profit. That's what everything came down to for him. No matter what was going on in the store, he was concerned with how it was going to affect profit. He waited every morning by dot matrix printer, I guess, to get the corporate profit sheet from the previous day's sales. He was focused on profit, and it paid off. When I started my Etsy shop, I knew from the start I had to be focused on profit, but I really didn't know what kind of profit to expect, and I also didn't understand fully how to price my items in order to make a good profit. I'm going to share what I learned with you today. Hi, I'm Carol, a retired teacher who's learned a lot from running my Etsy vintage shop. I share what's worked for me, though I'm not an expert, along with the stories that make each piece special. Today's video is part 3 in a 3-part series on what I consider to be Etsy shop owner basics: inventory, customer service, and pricing for profit. Please stick around and we will take a look at pricing for profit. Most of the items I source from my shop come from thrift stores or from antique stores. What I pay for those items is considered in economic terms the cost of goods sold, even though I haven't sold them yet. You could think of them as cost of goods sourced, I guess, too. Usually I buy pieces one at a time, and then whatever that price is that I paid for it, that goes in my inventory sheet. I will list what I'm asking for it, and then when it sells, I put what I sold it for. Sometimes, though, I'm able to buy merchandise in bundles. And that was the case a few weeks ago when I was able to buy an entire set of, I believe, 7 or 8 pieces of this Anarco Mood Blue Indigo for my shop. Now, I love this stuff, and I have a huge collection of it myself. If you want to know more about my collection, you can look at my About page in my Etsy shop, because I talk about this there, show you a couple of pictures. And I knew when I saw this in an antique store, 8 or 9 pieces for $40, I knew I had to buy it for my shop. Once I split up the cost between all the items, I'd only paid about $5 for each item. So that's just crazy for me, because I don't think I could have even bought things like this at Goodwill for that price. So just because I paid $5 a piece for it, though, doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to sell this. I wanted 2 or 3 times my profit, maybe 4 times my profit. I'm not going to sell this for $20. When I first had my Etsy shop, I used to rely on Google Lens a lot, not just to identify items, but also for my pricing. I mainly looked at what it was selling for on Etsy. Now, I realize, and you probably do too, that eBay customers are very different from Etsy customers. Etsy customers are usually willing to pay a little bit more than eBay customers are willing to pay. eBay is a place people go to get bargains. Etsy is a place where people go to get curated decor to help make their house a home. And so I knew that I only wanted to look at what people were asking for it on Etsy. And what I did initially was, let's say I would see this maybe for $52. I then would think, I'm going to sell mine for $50, and that way mine will sell first. Well, that wasn't probably the best idea, because first of all, it shortchanged myself. If I had to pay, say, maybe $26 for this, I couldn't have sold it for $50 and made much of a profit at all. So I quickly learned not to try to just undercut other sellers on Etsy. What I rely on now is what's called niche knowledge. I know what sells in my shop, and I know what I can pay for it. And we're going to go through some of these economic terms and concepts that helped shape my knowledge about what I can pay for items to sell in my shop. Now, two of the categories that sell very well in my shop, and I've mentioned it before, are wedding and anniversary items. And here are a few of those in my shop. And also crystal stemware. Let's take a look at how I came to realize that $28 was a good price to ask for a set of crystal stemware in my shop. So let's begin with margin. Okay? Profit margin. That is the selling price minus the cost of goods sold, or what you paid for the item, divided by the selling price times 100. And that's going to give you a percentage. I want to make at least a 60% margin in my shop. Let's look at an example of how I can figure out my margin on crystal stemware in my shop. If I pay $7.29 for a set of 2 crystal glasses, and then I sell them for $28, I simply subtract the cost of goods sold from the sell price, divide it by the selling price, and multiply it by 100. The second part of this equation is just the number simplified. Okay, don't let that. There's not really 2 steps, but if you remember anything about equations from 7th grade, this is basically what we're doing here. And that comes out to about 73.96%. And that is a decent margin. This is how I figured out that I want to sell crystal stemware in my shop for usually $28 a pair. Now, if it's Waterford, obviously it's going to be more than that. If it is another more higher end crystal, then I do ask more for it, but I usually don't ask more than about $38 for a set of stemware. The other thing that can affect what you can ask for a selling price on an item is what we're going to call perceived value. Perceived value is what the customer perceives the value to be. And this is going to include a couple of thoughts. Number one, I need to understand the perceived value of an item because I don't want to price it for any more than what I would pay for it. And that's my perceived value of the item. But I also want to influence the buyer's perceived value of the item also. And I do this through the thumbnail that I put on my listing. And if you've taken a look at my shop, you will notice that I have all styled photos for my thumbnails. And that was not true until about a month ago when I finally got them all updated. Prior to April, I had basically all just plain product photos as my thumbnail. But once I researched it, I realized that I was more drawn to thumbnails that were styled because I could imagine myself using that item then. So I did go through and, with the help of ChatGPT, create styled thumbnail photos for all of my listings. And you can see the difference here. I mean, which is more attractive to you? Which would you be willing to pay more for? Or which would you even really want to buy? It makes a huge difference. Now, I am going to do a video on how I do my photos and how I use ChatGPT for my styled photos. What I want to just tell you today, though, is that all of the creativity and the ideas for how things are styled comes out of my head. It does not come from ChatGPT. But I have learned how to make prompts that tell specifics and parameters of what I see in my head as the styled photo. And sometimes it takes a few tries, but ChatGPT is just a tool to help me accomplish what I see in my head as a styled photo. More about that in another video in an upcoming episode. Okay, now let's talk about another economics term, and that is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost considers the fact that you only have a certain amount of money. Let's say you only have $10. Are you going to buy $10 worth of gas? Or are you going to go have a $10 lunch? If you buy the gas, you don't get the lunch. If you buy the lunch, you don't get the gas. Opportunity cost is just figuring out what you would rather spend the money on. In my Etsy shop, it has taken me a while to really put this idea to use, because until this year, basically, I always considered that once something was in my shop and I set the price on it, then it was just gonna sit there till somebody bought it because that was the price. But what I needed to realize was that if I could move that old merchandise, I would free up money to be able to purchase new merchandise and maybe make even more of a profit, especially when it's just sitting there year after year, not going anywhere. So I really did kind of come around the bend with this summer, and I did realize that I needed to get rid of that 2022 and 2023 merchandise in my shop. And my SKU, stock keeping unit numbers, begin with the year, so I know exactly when I purchased items in my shop. What I found once I put everything on sale was that I did sell quite a bit of stuff. It took a little while for it to get in the system, but I ran 50% off for just about a month. And most of the merchandise that I really wanted to get rid of did sell for half price, but I didn't lose money on anything. So I counted it again that I got my money back, and then I was able to go out and purchase more merchandise, because this is a fact, I would say 8 times out of 10, something that sells in my shop has been listed for less than 2 weeks. So I want to keep that new merchandise coming in all the time and not sit on old merchandise. Buyers respond to strong visuals, they respond to trust in your shop, and they respond to thoughtful descriptions, not necessarily super long ones. I'm now trying to make my descriptions 200 words or less, because I know that myself, I don't like to go in and read a description that just goes on and on and on. But there are many ways that you can affect the customer's interest in buying an item from you besides just the price. Now, I would like to go through a little pricing exercise with you with this Fenton Colonial Blue thumbprint ruffled rim glass compote. That's a mouthful. Now, I paid $12.72 for this lovely piece of art glass at the Lansing Mega Mall just a couple weeks ago. I haven't gotten it listed yet, but it will be listed shortly, probably before this video goes up. In order to get my 60% margin, and here's the equation, I am going to have to ask about $32 for this. And I will tell you, there are shops on Etsy, on eBay also, but on Etsy that have this item for less than $32. But I think because I'm going to not just use a plain photo of it, but I am going to choose from a few different styled photos that I've thought out. I believe that I can get $32 for it. I have a 5-star shop. I have I think I have more than 300 reviews, and I have a lot of loyal customers. And so I think I can get $32 for this. But the biggest thing is, if this was an item that I was looking for, that I wanted, I would be willing to pay $32 for it. So that's your bottom line test. Would you be willing to pay the amount for it that you're asking your customer to pay, if this was something that you were in the market for? Now, margin is not net profit, okay? Net profit is when you subtract all of your other expenses from your profit, okay? So profit is the cost of goods sold subtracted from the selling price But then from your profit, in order to get net profit, you have to back out all of your other expenses, Etsy fees, advertising fees, shipping, not so much shipping costs, because I do have my customer pay the shipping costs, but the cost of the boxes, the peanuts, the bubble wrap, the stickers, everything else that goes along with getting that package mailed out to that customer. Pricing is part math and part mindset. Once you've figured the math out, you're not going to have to do it for every single item that you list in your shop. You just need to get a good idea of what you should be paying for those items that sell well in your shop. And once you've established that you're making a good profit, then you can just continue on making that profit. Maybe I've stirred up more questions than I have answered questions. In the comments, please post the things that I didn't cover that I probably needed to go into more deeply, and I will try to touch on those in a near future video. Something that I really love about what's happening with this channel and the community that I see forming around it are the comments. I just love the comments, and I love responding to the comments. There may come a point when I can't respond to everybody's comments, so please respond to each other's comments. That would just be so cool if we could continue developing this community around people who trusted each other and who are willing to share with each other. Don't let fear hold you back. Your first 100 listings are your best classroom. Just jump in and try it. If this video helped you and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. I'm going to be releasing videos every Tuesday. That's my plan, barring anything terrible happening. And I want to tailor those videos to what you're most interested in learning about. Another thing that would help the channel is, if you haven't already watched it, please watch the video that's recommended to you at the end of this video. Today, I'm not just signing off right now though, because we've got our new ending segment, What Sold in the Shop This Week. Welcome to the new segment, What Sold in the Shop This Week. This week, I want to share with you this item that sold. I purchased this item on August 2nd at my local hometown Goodwill store for $6.67. When I purchased it, it was pretty badly tarnished. It is an Oneida silver plate, rectangular, very ornate serving tray, and it's quite heavy. I listed this for $32 and it sold on August 18th. I think it was up for sale for less than a week. I try to get everything that I purchase up on Etsy within 2 weeks so that it can sell. Now, this was purchased by a customer in New York, and she paid $15.95 to get it shipped to her from Michigan. And like I said, it was pretty heavy, and it took a fairly large box to ship it in. I paid $3.20 in Etsy fees, and realize your Etsy fees are charged not only on the selling price, but they add the selling price and the shipping price together, and you pay the fee on that. I can't really wrap my head around that. Maybe someday I'll figure it out, but that's the way it is. My profit margin on this item was 69.16%, and my return on investment was 331.7%. And here's a quick chart on return on investment that you can refer to. I was very happy with this sale, and I hope that the customer will be happy with it too. Please join us next week.